The air hung heavy with the scent of barbecue and sunscreen, sunlight dancing across the rippling surface of Willow Ridge Lake like scattered diamonds. Kids splashed near the shore while a curated playlist of pop hits floated through the air, blending with laughter and the soft murmur of content guests. To any bystander, it was just another picturesque summer afternoon. But to me, Taylor Brooks, it was a powder keg waiting for a match. I stood on the back deck of my lakefront home, watching a group of teenagers dive into the pool, their joyful shrieks echoing across the cove. It was a private party, casual, small-scale, and meticulously planned. But not your average get-together, because sitting poolside in a floppy straw hat and oversized sunglasses, sipping lemonade from a mason jar, was none other than Governor Ellie Graham incognito and off-duty watching her daughter, Lily, celebrate her 16th birthday with a dozen friends. No media, no security fuss, just a low-profile escape from political spectacle. And she had trusted me, an old family friend and former Marine, to host it on my secluded property. My land has been in the Brooks family for 3 generations. It predates the Willow Ridge Lakeside HOA by decades. When the HOA was formed, they tried folding me into their jurisdiction. I refused. Legally, I stood apart. My property was independent, self-sustaining, and beyond their reach, or so I thought. Enter Karen Aldridge, the HOA president, the self-anointed queen of regulation. Queen of regulation, she moved in 2 years ago and seized power like a suburban Caesar. Blonde bob sharp enough to slice glass, eyes narrowed with suspicion, and a voice trained in passive aggression. Karen made it her mission to enforce every bylaw, both written and imagined, with the fervor of a zealot. Trash bins left out too long, violation, garden gnome in the wrong hue. Fine, American flag hung 1 inch too low, warning issued. And then there was me, the rogue element living on HOA adjacent land. She tried everything: letters, citations, neighborhood shaming, but nothing stuck. Until today. I spotted her through the trees before. I heard the electric whine of her customized golf cart slicing up the gravel path like an invading tank. She parked outside my property line, brandishing her clipboard, as though it were a sheriff's badge. Here we go, I muttered under my breath. Karen stepped out and immediately began scanning the area, eyes flitting from the lake to the party decorations, the guests, the speakers set up by the pool. Then her gaze found me. I walked toward the fence line, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Afternoon, Karen. She didn't respond. Her thumb was already clicking away on her phone, snapping photos, like she was building a case file. This event was not approved, she snapped finally. There's amplified music, unauthorized guests, and open swimming with no lifeguard present. You're in violation of HOA safety ordinances and noise policies, I sighed. We've been over this. I'm not in your HOA. You use our roads. You enjoy the view funded by our landscaping dues, and your activities impact the shared environment. That gives us grounds to enforce compliance. I glanced over her shoulder at the shimmering lake. You mean nature? Karen's jaw tightened. Don't play games, Mr. Brooks. This is your final warning. If you don't shut this down immediately, I'll be forced to call the authorities. Behind me, one of the governor's security staff posing as a caterer watched the exchange with faint interest, hand resting near his hip beneath his apron. I gave him a subtle shake of my head. Karen's voice rose. There are underage guests. Alcohol. Boating without registration. I'm dialing 911. I wouldn't recommend that, I said evenly, but she was already tapping her screen with righteous fury. Walking a few paces away to make the call without interruption, I returned to the deck. Lily was laughing with her friends, unaware. The governor sat calmly under the umbrella, her expression unreadable. I leaned down. Small problem, I said quietly. Karen's calling the cops. The governor didn't flinch. She lifted her sunglasses just enough to meet my eyes. Let her, she said. And in that moment, I realized Karen hadn't just stepped into a dispute over property lines or noise levels. She'd wandered into something much bigger than she, who could handle something that would expose her thirst for control to the very authority she claimed to represent. The match had been struck, and the fuse was lit. Karen's voice pierced the air like a smoke alarm in a silent room, shrill, urgent, insistent. She stood at the edge of my property, one hand dramatically shielding her eyes from the sun as she barked into her phone. Yes, operator, I need police dispatch to 904 Lakeside Drive. There's an unauthorized party, underage guests, noise violations, possible alcohol. It's a serious safety hazard, yes, immediately. She hung up with theatrical flair, turning to glare at me through the fence like she'd just reported a terrorist cell. Inside, the party continued undisturbed. Lily danced with her friends near the pool, blissfully unaware of the brewing storm. Governor Graham still lounged beneath her umbrella, sipping lemonade as if she were on vacation, not in the middle of an impending suburban standoff. I met Karen's stare calmly, arms crossed, calling the cops to break up a birthday party. I said, "You really think that's your jurisdiction?" Karen stepped forward, clipboard clutched like a gavel. "You think you're clever, Mr. Brooks," she snapped, "but your arrogance doesn't make you immune to consequences. That party is a violation on multiple counts, and once law enforcement arrives, they'll see how reckless and irresponsible you really are. I'm not under HOA authority, Karen. You use the same roads, share the same lake, and affect the same environment. That makes you subject to community oversight. That makes me a neighbor, I replied, not your subject. Her nostrils flared. When the police arrive, they'll agree with me. At that moment, the low hum of engines approached from the distance. 2 black and white patrol cars turned off the main road and rolled up the gravel drive. Karen straightened, brushing imaginary dust from her sash and adjusting her lanyard badge, as if she were preparing for a press conference. I walked out to greet them, keeping my hands visible and my voice calm. One officer stepped out first, a tall, broad-shouldered man in mirrored sunglasses. His expression was neutral, unreadable. Karen practically sprinted to him. Officer, thank goodness. I've been trying to control this situation, but he's hosting an illegal party. There are minors, music, alcohol, possibly drugs. The second officer stepped out, leaned on the car door, and raised an eyebrow. The first officer looked at me, then past me where, now standing quietly near the back deck, was Governor Graham, herself. His tone shifted immediately. Mr. Brooks, that's me. He nodded, then gave a subtle salute. Governor Graham sends her regards. She informed dispatch ahead of time that she'd be present for a private event. We're just here to confirm everything's running smoothly. Karen froze. I'm sorry, did you say the governor? The officer turned toward her. Ma'am, are you the one who made the call? Yes, she sputtered, but I had no idea. Why would the governor be here? This is a restricted neighborhood with bylaws, and he held up a hand. This is private property. Governor Graham is free to attend any lawful gathering she chooses. Mr. Brooks is not in violation of any city or state laws. As for the HOA, that doesn't give you authority over residents who opted out. Karen's voice shrank in her throat. But, the party. The music, The second officer stepped forward, clearly amused. From what I see, it's a peaceful gathering. No visible alcohol, no signs of disruption. If anything, it's one of the most polite teen parties I've seen. The governor stepped forward, her voice calm but razor-sharp. Thank you, officers. I'm afraid our host has been dealing with unwarranted interference. I appreciate your professionalism. Karen turned beet red. I didn't know there was no notice. You should have registered this with the HOA. I don't answer to you, the governor replied coolly, and neither does he. Karen looked like a dam had burst behind her eyes. The officers turned back toward their cars. Content, their duty was done. But before they left, the taller officer looked at Karen one last time. Ma'am, we recommend not misusing emergency services again. False reports can result in fines or worse. And just like that, the patrol cars rolled away, engines fading into the warm summer air. Karen stood frozen. Her power, built on fear and assumption, had crumbled in seconds. I looked at her, not with malice, but finality. Next time, maybe try knocking first. She turned without a word, climbed into a golf cart, and sped off in a cloud of indignation. Back at the pool, the music resumed. Lily laughed. The governor raised her glass to me from across the yard. The storm had passed, but the damage to Karen's pride was only just beginning. The next morning, the lake was still. The laughter from yesterday's party had faded into memory, leaving only the rhythmic chirping of birds and the gentle lapping of water against the shore. I was sipping black coffee on my porch, enjoying the calm, when I noticed something taped to my gate, a crisp white envelope sealed with the Willoridge Lakeside HOA logo to swans etched around a fountain. As if Karen herself had sketched it with self-importance, I sighed and opened it. The letter inside dripped with full legality. Notice of violation. According to the document, I owed a $1,250 fine for creating a public disturbance, failure to register a large-scale gathering, and refusal to comply with community oversight. It was signed in a bold flourish by Karen Aldridge, HOA president, followed by a veiled threat of further legal action if payment wasn't rendered within 10 days. I leaned back, amused. Karen had lost face in front of the governor, in front of the police, in front of the entire neighborhood. And this letter, it wasn't about order or protocol, it was about revenge, a last-ditch effort to claw back control. I wasn't the only one who saw through it. By noon, a sleek black SUV rolled up my gravel path. The back door opened, and out stepped Rachel Miles, Governor Graham's chief of staff, dressed in her usual no-nonsense navy suit and low heels. She walked with purpose, clutching a folder thick with documents. I assume you got Karen's little love note, she said without even sitting down. I handed her the letter. Rachel read it once, then again, slower, her brow furrowing. Good. This confirms everything the governor anticipated. She knew Karen would retaliate. Karen's not subtle. She was a known nuisance even before the governor's daughter turned 60. We've had complaints trickle in from Willoridge for months, dozens of residents quietly filing grievances that go nowhere because Karen either dismisses or suppresses them. I raised an eyebrow, and now the governor sees an opportunity to make something right. She opened the folder. Inside were copies of other letters, HOA citations, resident complaints, old email chains with timestamps, all revealing a pattern of harassment, selective enforcement, and financial mismanagement. Karen had been running Willow Ridge like a personal fiefdom, targeting dissenters and ignoring the very people she was supposed to represent. "This is a lot," I said, flipping through the pages. Rachel nodded. "We're preparing to audit the HOA through a state-sanctioned community integrity review. We'll start with leadership practices, bylaw enforcement procedures, and how community funds are spent. This," she held up Karen's violation notice, "is the perfect catalyst. And what do you need from me?" "Nothing public," Rachel said, closing the folder. "Just stay quiet, stay neutral, and let the pressure build." I hesitated. "She's going to double down." Rachel smiled. "Let her. That's what people like." The fallout didn't come as a single explosion. It came in waves. Quiet at first, then roaring. Within a week, whispers stirred through the Willow Ridge neighborhood like wildfire. Residents began sharing stories, some cautiously, others with pent-up frustration. A single mom revealed how Karen fined her for installing a solar panel without aesthetic approval. A retired vet recounted being threatened with legal action for parking his Harley too close to a hedge. Even Mrs. Dornfeld, the HOA's original treasurer, came forward. Apparently, Karen had replaced her after she asked too many questions about a $12,000 community beautification expense. The beautification, a marble bird bath in front yard. And then came the meeting. The HOA's quarterly town hall had never drawn more than a dozen sleepy residents and a few board members, but this time, chairs overflowed. Neighbors who hadn't attended a meeting in years packed the clubhouse until it felt like the whole community had crammed inside. Even people with no official voice like me stood quietly along the walls, watching the pressure cooker boil. Karen arrived fashionably late, striding in like a monarch at coronation. Her heels clicked confidently across the hardwood floor, clipboard tucked under one arm, lips pursed in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But the applause she expected never came. Instead, the air buzzed with murmurs and side-eyes. She took the podium with a practiced smile. "Good evening, let's get started." A hand shot up in the crowd. Liam Walker, a former Navy chief who now taught auto shop at the high school, stood tall in the second row. "Before we do," he said, voice steady, "I'd like to make a motion to remove Karen Aldridge as president of the HOA, effective immediately." Gasps, then silence. Karen blinked. "That's not on the agenda." Liam didn't blink. "According to Article 4, Section 8 of our bylaws, any resident can call for a vote of no confidence during a scheduled meeting. And judging by the people here tonight, I think there's more than enough support." Several heads nodded. Applause broke out from the back. Karen's voice strained. "This is absurd. You can't just hijack procedure. I've given everything to this community, sacrificed my time, my weekends." A second hand rose, then a third, and a fourth. The tide had turned. Rachel Miles entered just then, slipping quietly into the back row. No words, just her presence was enough. Karen saw her, and the last bit of color drained from her face. In under 5 minutes, the vote was called. Ballots were passed, anonymous, final, binding the tally. 47-3. Karen was out. She didn't say a word as she gathered her clipboard, turned, and walked stiffly out of the room. Her kingdom had collapsed beneath her heels, and she had no one left to command. The new HOA president, Liam Walker, the first order of business under his leadership, a full transparency audit, open board nominations, and the rollback of over 60 unfair community enhancement policies Karen had unilaterally enforced. As the crowd dispersed, I slipped out quietly. I didn't need credit. I didn't need attention. I just wanted peace. Later that night, as the lake reflected the moonlight and the breeze rustled the trees like a satisfied sigh, I stood on my porch, drink in hand. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel Aldridge. "Governor sends her regards." I replied with 2 words, "Much appreciated." The HOA had its reckoning. The governor had made her point, and I had my quiet slice of lakeside life back. Karen hadn't just lost control, she lost the illusion that she ever had any to begin with, and that, in the end, was the most satisfying victory of all.